The lawyer's office felt like a tomb. I sat across from Diana, my stepmother, still numb from burying Dad 3 days ago. The black dress I wore stuck to my skin. My eyes burned from crying, but no more tears would come. Mr. Fletcher shuffled papers on his mahogany desk. He'd been Dad's lawyer for 20 years. His face looked grim as he opened a thick folder. "Thank you both for coming," he said quietly. "I know this is incredibly difficult." Diana sat perfectly still beside me, her designer sunglasses hiding her eyes even though we were indoors. Her red nails drummed against her purse. Something felt wrong. "Before we begin," Diana interrupted smoothly, "I need to inform you that Thomas updated his will. Very recently." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She pulled out a crisp document and slid it across the desk like she was laying down a winning card. "Thomas signed this 2 weeks before he passed away," she said. "It replaces the previous will entirely." 2 weeks ago, Dad could barely speak. He was heavily medicated, confused, slipping away from me hour by hour. I reached for the document with shaking hands. Then I saw it. My name crossed out completely. Everything went to Diana. "This can't be real," I whispered. The room tilted sideways. Every possession Dad owned, the house where I grew up, his life savings, his vintage car collection, the lake cabin where we spent summers, all of it now belonged to Diana. I got nothing. Not even a photograph. "I don't understand," I said, my voice breaking. "Why would he do this?" Diana's lips curved into a sad smile, but her eyes stayed cold behind those sunglasses. "Your father made his choice, Emily. I'm sorry it hurts, but these were his final wishes." "Miss Emily," Mr. Fletcher said carefully, "I must say, this is highly unusual. Your father never mentioned changing his will to me. We'd discussed his estate plan many times, and you were always—" "He used a different lawyer," Diana cut him off. "Someone closer to the hospital. More convenient during his final days." My chest felt tight. Dad had trusted Mr. Fletcher for 2 decades. Why would he suddenly switch lawyers when he was dying? "I'd like to see proof that," I started. "Everything is completely legal and properly notarized," Diana said firmly. "You can contest it if you'd like, but you'll lose. And waste money you clearly don't have." The cruelty in her voice was barely hidden. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to cry in front of her. "I think we should take a break," Mr. Fletcher said, standing. "We're finished here," Diana announced, gathering her things. I stumbled toward the door, my legs barely holding me up. Mr. Fletcher touched my elbow gently. "Emily, wait. Please." In the hallway, Mr. Fletcher glanced around nervously before pulling a sealed envelope from inside his jacket. "Your father gave this to me 6 months ago," he whispered. "He made me swear to give it to you privately if anything happened to him." My hands trembled as I accepted it. Dad's handwriting covered the front, asterisk for Emily. Only Emily. "He knew something was wrong," Mr. Fletcher continued quietly. "He told me Diana was changing. Becoming different. Pressuring him about things. He wanted to make sure you were protected." "Then why didn't you say something in there?" I asked desperately. "Because I have no legal standing without concrete proof. But this." He tapped the envelope. "This might give you what you need to fight back." My heart pounded. "What's inside?" "I honestly don't know. He sealed it himself and told me never to open it." Mr. Fletcher's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "But your father loved you more than anything, Emily. He wouldn't abandon you. Not like this. Not willingly." I clutched the envelope against my chest like it was the last piece of Dad I had left. "Be very careful," Mr. Fletcher warned. "Diana is far more dangerous than she appears." I nodded, unable to form words, and rushed to my car. Inside, I sat in the parking lot staring at Dad's familiar handwriting through blurred vision. Finally, with shaking fingers, I tore it open. Asterisk Dear Emily asterisk. Asterisk If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so terribly sorry. Asterisk. Asterisk I need you to understand something crucial. I never wanted to cut you out of my will. Never. You are my daughter, my greatest pride, my entire heart. Diana has been pushing me relentlessly to change everything, but I refused her. I told her no 100 times. But lately, she's become desperate. Angry. Vicious. She whispers terrible lies about you, trying to convince me you don't care, that you only want my money. It's pure poison, Emily. None of it is true. I'm writing this because I'm genuinely frightened. Frightened that she'll find some way to hurt you after I'm gone. I'm getting weaker every single day, and my mind isn't sharp anymore. What if she tricks me into signing something? What if I forget what's real? Remember our last conversation at the cabin? The promises we made to each other. I love you more than words can express. Fight for the truth, sweetheart. Dad. I read it 3 times through streaming tears, sobbing so hard my whole body shook. The cabin. He specifically mentioned the cabin. But we never had a last conversation there. I hadn't visited the cabin in months because Dad was too sick to travel. What was he trying to tell me? What did he want me to find? The cabin sat nestled in the woods 40 minutes outside town, surrounded by towering pines and silence. I pulled up the gravel driveway early the next morning, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The place looked abandoned, leaves blanketed the porch, and all the windows stared back dark and empty. I unlocked the front door with my spare key and stepped inside. Immediately, something felt terribly wrong. Fresh coffee stains covered the kitchen counter. A woman's grey sweater, definitely not mine, hung carelessly over a chair. Dad's favorite coffee mug sat unwashed in the sink, still stained with dried coffee. Someone had been here recently. Very recently. My pulse quickened as I moved cautiously through the rooms. In Dad's small study, I found his desk drawer forced open violently. Papers lay scattered everywhere like someone had searched frantically, desperately. Then I spotted it on the desk. Dad's old voice recorder, the digital one he'd used for work notes for years. But when I picked it up, my heart sank. The memory card slot was completely empty. No, I whispered, checking again and again. Nothing. Dad always kept meticulous backups of everything important. Always. If he'd recorded something crucial, where would he hide the copy? I was turning to leave when I heard heavy footsteps on the front porch. My entire body froze. The door creaked open slowly. "Well, hello there," said a man's gravelly voice. "You must be Emily." I spun around, my heart hammering. An older man in worn overalls stood in the doorway holding a garden rake. He had kind, weathered eyes and a gentle face. "Sorry to startle you," he said. "I'm George. I live in the cabin next door. Saw your car and wanted to make sure everything was all right." Relief flooded through me like warm water. "You knew my father?" "Sure did. Thomas was a genuinely good man. I'm real sorry for your loss, young lady." "Thank you so much." I hesitated, then asked, "George, have you noticed anyone else here recently? Maybe in the past few weeks?" His expression immediately darkened. "Your stepmother. She came by maybe 4 or 5 days before the funeral. She looked real upset about something." My stomach twisted into knots. "Diana was here." "Yeah." I heard her voice through the windows, yelling something fierce. Caught some words about getting the will done before it's too late. Gave me a real bad feeling, I can tell you that. "Did you see what she did inside?" George scratched his weathered chin thoughtfully. "She left in a big hurry, dropped something in the gravel driveway. I picked it up, meaning to return it eventually, but..." He reached into his pocket. "Here. Maybe you should have this." He placed a small SD card in my palm. My heart nearly stopped beating. This was hers. "Don't think so, actually. Looked like she dropped it by accident, didn't even notice." I stared at the tiny card, barely able to breathe. This was it. This was what Dad wanted me to find. I raced back to my apartment and shoved the SD card into my laptop with trembling, clumsy fingers. The file loaded agonizingly slowly. For one horrible moment, I thought it might be corrupted or blank. Then Dad's voice filled my small apartment. Today is March 14th. I'm recording this because I desperately need evidence of what's happening. Diana has been pressuring me relentlessly for weeks now about the will. She wants me to cut Emily out completely. She keeps saying Emily doesn't care about me, only about my money. But I know my daughter. That's absolutely not who she is. Tears streamed down my face as I listened to his weak, tired voice. Diana actually screamed at me today. She said if I don't change the will exactly how she wants, she'll make certain I regret it. I told her absolutely not. Emily is my daughter. She inherits everything I have. That's final and non-negotiable. There was a tense pause, then Diana's voice erupted, sharp, venomous, terrifying. You're being completely foolish, Thomas. That ungrateful girl abandoned you. I'm the one who's actually here. She didn't abandon me, Dad said. His voice so weak it broke my heart. She has her own life to live. That's exactly what good parents want for their children. Then you're actually choosing her over Emmy. Diana shrieked like a wild animal. I'm choosing what's right. Dad said with surprising strength. Then came a horrible, loud crash, something heavy hitting the floor, followed by Dad gasping in obvious pain. The recording cut off abruptly. I sat frozen, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. I called Mr. Fletcher immediately, my voice shaking so badly I could barely speak. I found evidence, I said. A recording. Diana threatened him directly. You can hear her admitting she tried to force him to change the will. There was a long, heavy pause on the line. Emily, that's extremely significant. But it might not be legally sufficient by itself. What do you mean not sufficient? You can actually hear her threatening him. Diana's lawyers will absolutely claim it's taken out of context or that it's fabricated somehow. We need more concrete evidence, official documents, credible witnesses, something that proves she interfered with the legal process itself. I wanted to scream in frustration. So what am I supposed to do? Stay completely calm. Keep gathering evidence methodically. And whatever you do, don't confront Diana directly. If she realizes what you have, she'll destroy everything else. After hanging up, I sat staring at my phone feeling utterly helpless. That evening, my phone buzzed with a new message. Diana, Emily, sweetheart, let's have dinner tomorrow night. I really think we should talk properly. I hate how things ended at the lawyer's office. You're still family to me, after all. I stared at the message, my skin crawling with disgust. She'd never once called me sweetheart in her entire life. This was obviously a trap of some kind. But maybe, just maybe, I could turn it against her somehow. I typed back carefully. Okay. Where should we meet? Her response came almost instantly. My place. 7 o'clock. Just the two of us. I saved the entire message thread and exhaled slowly, trying to steady my nerves. Tomorrow night, I was walking straight into the lion's den. Diana's house, my father's house, the home where I grew up, now felt like a museum dedicated to lies. She greeted me at the door wearing a practiced, gentle smile and an expensive cashmere sweater, playing the role of concerned stepmother absolutely perfectly. Emily, thank you so much for coming, she said with fake warmth. I know these past few days have been incredibly hard on both of us. I forced myself to smile back. Yeah, they really have been. She led me through familiar hallways to the formal dining room where she'd set the table with Dad's good china, the set Mom had picked out decades ago. Crystal wine glasses sparkled under the chandelier. Everything was so elaborately fake it made my skin crawl. I really wanted to clear the air between us, Diana said, pouring wine with an unsteady hand. I know the will came as a terrible shock to you. But your father, he was extremely clear about his final wishes. Was he really? I asked as carefully as possible. Yes, absolutely. Her hand trembled noticeably as she set the wine bottle down. He told me directly that you'd moved on with your own life. That you didn't need his money to be happy. Every word was a carefully constructed lie. I nodded, pretending to believe her poisonous story. I guess I just wish he'd told me himself, face to face. He was far too weak by then, sweetheart. It honestly broke his heart to do it. I sipped wine to hide the rage burning in my chest. Diana kept talking, her voice smooth and practiced, but I barely listened to the actual words. Instead, I watched her hands shake slightly, her eyes dart nervously toward the hallway, her forced smile crack around the edges. She was genuinely nervous about something. But why? After dinner, Diana excused herself to take what she called an urgent business call. I heard her voice drift from the hallway, low, tense, and angry. She doesn't know what else I hid, Diana hissed into her phone. I made absolutely sure of that. My blood turned to ice in my veins. I strained desperately to hear more details, but she moved farther away down the hall. When she returned minutes later, her artificial smile was firmly back in place, but her eyes looked genuinely wild. Everything okay? I asked with fake innocence. Oh, fine, fine. Just boring business matters. She sat back down too quickly, too stiffly. Emily, I really want you to know. I genuinely cared about your father. Deeply. I'm absolutely sure you did, I lied smoothly. When I finally left an hour later, I sat in my car replaying her whispered words over and over. What else I hid. There was more evidence somewhere. Something Diana was desperately, frantically trying to keep hidden and secret. But where could it possibly be? I pulled out my phone and scrolled methodically through Dad's old emails, searching for anything unusual or out of place. Then I found it buried in his records. A receipt for a storage unit rental, dated exactly 1 month before he died. Dad had never mentioned renting any storage space. I had the address saved in his files. Tomorrow morning, I was going there to search. The storage facility smelled strongly of rust, motor oil, and old cardboard boxes. I found Unit 247 at the very back of the complex, my hands shaking violently as I tried Dad's spare key. The lock clicked open with a rusty sound. Inside, I found boxes carefully labeled in Dad's distinctive handwriting. Important documents. Keep safe. I tore through them desperately, frantically. Bank statements. Old family photos. Legal papers. Then I found it. A metal folder secured with a combination lock I didn't know. I tried Dad's birthday first. Nothing. Then mine. Still nothing. Then I tried the date he and Mom got married, back before cancer took her from us. The lock clicked open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with Dad's handwriting. If anything happens to me, read this. Beneath it lay a small flash drive. My heart raced as I read Dad's handwritten note. This is my backup evidence. Everything Diana said. Everything she did to me. I recorded it all carefully. If I'm gone and Emily is hurt by this, here is the proof she needs. I grabbed the flash drive immediately, but as I dug deeper through the folder, I realized something was terribly wrong. The note specifically mentioned two separate backup files. One was here in my hand. But the other one was missing, completely gone. Someone had already been through this storage unit. My stomach sank with dread. I drove straight to the storage facility office, my mind racing with terrible possibilities. The manager, a tired-looking woman named Angela, pulled up her computer records. Yeah, someone definitely tried accessing Unit 247 about 2 weeks ago, she confirmed. A woman claiming to be the owner's wife. Diana, I breathed. She didn't have proper identification, so I turned her away according to policy. She got extremely nasty about it, threatening to call her lawyers. Did she manage to take anything? Not that I personally witnessed. But she could have tried picking the lock after hours when we're closed. We don't have security cameras covering that particular section, unfortunately. I thanked Angela and left, my mind spinning with implications. If Diana knew about the storage unit, she definitely knew Dad had collected evidence against her. That's exactly why she tried so desperately to access it. That's why she was terrified of me discovering the truth. I checked the flash drive as soon as I got home. It contained another recording, this one made at the hospital. Dad's voice sounded terribly weak but remained surprisingly clear. Diana visited today. She brought legal papers with her. She's saying if I don't sign them immediately, she'll leave me here completely alone. But I absolutely won't do it. I won't betray Emily like that. Asterisk. There was much more on the recording. Much more evidence. But as I listened carefully, I realized something crucial. Dad mentioned hiding another backup file. Somewhere Diana absolutely couldn't find it. The cabin I thought suddenly. The loose floorboards in his study. I drove to the cabin that same night, my headlights cutting through the thick darkness. Inside, I went directly to Dad's study and pulled back the old braided rug. The loose floorboard was exactly where I remembered from childhood. I pried it open carefully. Beneath it sat a torn folder, mostly empty except for a ripped corner showing a different law firm's letterhead. Not Mr. Fletcher's firm. Whitman and Associates. Why would Dad suddenly go to a completely different lawyer? I was about to leave when bright headlights suddenly swept across the cabin windows. My heart stopped dead. A car pulled into the gravel driveway outside. I peeked carefully through the curtains and saw her stepping out. Diana. She walked toward the cabin, her face twisted with pure fury. I had maybe seconds to decide what to do. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, and hit record with shaking fingers. Then I waited in the darkness, my heart pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it. The front door slammed open violently. I knew you'd eventually come here, Diana snarled, her polished mask completely shattered and gone. You just can't leave things alone, can you? I stood my ground, phone hidden carefully in my jacket pocket, still recording. I'm just looking for the truth about my father. The truth? She laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and ugly. The truth is your father was pathetically weak. He needed someone strong beside him. Someone who understood what really mattered in life. You mean money? Her eyes flashed dangerously. Don't you dare act so high and mighty, Emily. You would have done exactly the same thing in my position. I would never manipulate a dying man for money. Manipulate? Diana stepped closer, her face contorted. I saved him from making a terrible mistake. You abandoned him when he needed you. I was actually there. I had a job. A life. That's not abandonment. He changed his mind about you, Diana hissed venomously. After I explained what you really are, a selfish, ungrateful child. My breath caught. What did you just say? Your father finally realized you didn't deserve anything he'd built. I helped him see that clearly. You coerced him. You manipulated a dying man. I guided him toward the truth, she snapped. And yes, I destroyed one of his ridiculous folders. He was documenting everything like some paranoid fool. She suddenly froze mid-sentence. Her eyes went wide as realization hit her. You're recording this conversation right now, she whispered. I said absolutely nothing. She lunged desperately for my phone. I dodged sideways, running hard for the front door. Diana grabbed frantically at my arm, but I yanked free and sprinted toward my car. My phone battery flashed a warning. 1% remaining. Emily, stop right now. Diana screamed behind me. I didn't stop running. I drove like my entire life depended on it, phone clutched desperately in one hand, praying it wouldn't die before I reached Mr. Fletcher's office. The screen went completely black as I screeched into the parking lot. No. No, no, no. I ran inside, gasping for air. Mr. Fletcher. He looked up, startled by my appearance. Emily, what happened? My phone died, I panted desperately. But I recorded Diana. She confessed everything. Absolutely everything. His eyes went wide. Give it to me immediately. He plugged my dead phone into his computer and waited while it slowly powered back on. The seconds felt like entire hours passing. Finally, The screen lit up. Mr. Fletcher opened the voice recorder app with careful fingers. The audio file was there, auto-saved just seconds before the battery died. We listened together in complete silence. Diana's voice filled the quiet office. I destroyed one of his ridiculous folders. Your father finally realized you didn't deserve anything. I helped him see that clearly. Mr. Fletcher exhaled slowly. This is it. This absolutely proves coercion and manipulation. Then his face darkened considerably. But we still need that second backup file. The one with the alternate will he tried to create. I remembered the torn letterhead from the cabin. Whitman and Associates. Dad went to them for something. Then that's where we go next. Before we could take action, a courier arrived at my apartment early the next morning. Official court papers. Diana had filed a restraining order against me. The petition claimed I'd been repeatedly harassing and intimidating her, illegally trespassing on her property, and attempting to steal confidential legal documents. My hands shook violently as I read the lies. The hearing was scheduled in just 3 days. Mr. Fletcher called within minutes. This is purely a delay tactic. She knows you're getting dangerously close to the truth. What should I do? Stay completely calm. Don't contact her under any circumstances. Don't go anywhere near her property. We'll fight this properly in court, and when we do, we'll have everything we need. The hearing was absolutely brutal. Diana sat across the courtroom in a conservative black dress, dabbing her eyes constantly with tissues. She looked exactly like a grieving widow being cruelly tormented by a vindictive stepdaughter. Your Honor, her expensive lawyer began smoothly, my client has suffered more than enough. Miss Emily refuses to accept her father's clearly stated final wishes and has resorted to harassment, intimidation, and trespassing. I wanted to scream the truth. But Mr. Fletcher squeezed my hand firmly under the table. Stay calm, he whispered. Trust me. When it was finally my turn to speak, I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'm not harassing anyone. I'm simply searching for the truth about my father's will. Diana has been. Unsubstantiated allegations without any evidence, her lawyer interrupted smoothly. The judge raised his hand. I'll review all submitted materials carefully and make my decision. Court is adjourned until I see sufficient evidence from both parties. It wasn't a denial of the restraining order. But it wasn't approval either. That same evening, George, the kind neighbor from the cabin, called me unexpectedly. I heard through town that you're in some legal trouble, he said. I want to help however I can. How could you possibly help? I'll testify in court. I heard Diana screaming about that will with my own ears. I'll tell the judge exactly what I witnessed. Hope sparked in my chest for the first time. You'd really do that for me? Your dad was a genuinely good man. He deserves justice, and so do you. 2 days later, George stood before the judge and told his story with simple honesty. I heard her clear as day through those cabin walls, George said firmly. Get the will done before it's too late. Those were her exact words, Your Honor. Diana's lawyer objected loudly and viciously, but George didn't back down or change his story. When the judge asked if I had any additional evidence to present, I met his eyes directly. Not yet, Your Honor. But I will find it. The judge nodded slowly, seeming to respect my honesty. I'll give you exactly 2 weeks. Find what you need, Miss Emily. As we left the courtroom, Diana deliberately brushed past me. You're completely wasting your time, she hissed quietly. But her hands were shaking again. She was genuinely terrified. I found Whitman and Associates' office the very next morning. The receptionist looked up my father's name in their system and frowned slightly. Yes, he was a client here. But only very briefly. Do you still have records? She hesitated. I need to speak with our senior partner first. 20 long minutes later, I sat across from Martin Whitman, a sharp-eyed lawyer in his 60s. Your father came to me approximately 4 months before he died, Martin explained. He wanted to draft a completely new will, one that specifically reinstated you as his primary heir. My heart leaped with hope. What happened to it? We completed the entire draft. But before your father could come in to sign and properly notarize the document, someone called and cancelled his appointment. Who called? A woman claiming to be his wife. Diana. Pure rage burned through me. Do you still have the draft will? Yes, absolutely. Martin pulled out a file folder. And I have something else you need to hear. A voicemail message. He pressed play on his phone. Diana's voice, cold, threatening, unmistakable. Mr. Whitman, my husband will not be keeping his appointment with you. If you contact him again about this matter, I'll make absolutely certain you regret it. Do you understand me? I stared at the phone, completely stunned. She directly threatened you. Yes. I should have reported it immediately, but your father died before I could take action. Martin's expression hardened with anger. But I saved everything carefully. And I'll absolutely testify about all of it. Finally, all the pieces were falling into place. Mr. Fletcher carefully assembled everything we'd collected. The cabin recording of Dad refusing to cut me out. Diana's full confession at the cabin. The threatening voicemail to Martin Whitman. George's eyewitness testimony. The draft will proving Dad's true final intentions. This is a completely solid case, Mr. Fletcher said, his voice filled with quiet triumph. Diana manipulated, coerced, and deliberately obstructed your father's clear legal wishes. We can prove everything. I felt genuine hope for the first time in weeks. When do we go to court? Next week. Probate court. This time, Diana won't be able to hide from the truth. I spent the next several days carefully preparing, reviewing every single document, every recording, every piece of evidence. I barely slept at all. The night before the final hearing, Diana sent me one last text message. You're going to regret this more than you can imagine. I didn't reply. I was completely done being afraid of her. The courtroom was absolutely packed with people. Diana arrived with her high-priced lawyer, her expression confident, almost smug with certainty. She genuinely thought she'd already won. Mr. Fletcher and I sat quietly at our table, calm and ready. The judge entered, and the hearing officially began. Diana's lawyer spoke first, painting me as a bitter, estranged daughter trying desperately to steal an inheritance I didn't deserve. Miss Emily abandoned her father during his final years, he said smoothly. Diana was the one who genuinely cared for him, loved him deeply, and earned his complete trust. When it was our turn, Mr. Fletcher stood slowly, deliberately. Your Honor, we have extensive evidence that will prove Miss Emily's father never intended to cut her out of his will. In fact, he fought desperately to protect her, right up until his final days. Diana's confident smile faltered slightly. We have multiple recordings, credible witness testimony, and official documents that show Mrs. Diana systematically coerced, manipulated, and deliberately obstructed Mr. Thomas's clearly stated legal wishes. The judge leaned forward with interest. I'd like to hear this evidence immediately. Mr. Fletcher nodded. Let's start with this recording. He pressed play. Dad's voice filled the entire courtroom. I will not cut Emily out. She is my daughter. She inherits everything. Then Diana's scream. You're being foolish, Thomas. Shocked gasps rippled through the crowded room. Diana's face went deathly pale. The recording continued playing. Diana screamed at me today. She said if I don't change the will, she'll make certain I regret it. Diana's lawyer stood up quickly. Your Honor, this recording could easily be edited or taken completely out of. Sit down immediately, the judge said sharply. The courtroom fell into absolute silence. Mr. Fletcher played the second recording, the one from the cabin confrontation. Diana's voice, venomous and crystal clear. Your father finally realized you didn't deserve anything he built. I helped him see that clearly. Yes, I destroyed one of his ridiculous folders. Diana shot to her feet. That's edited. She tricked me into saying those things. Mrs. Diana, the judge warned sternly, sit down right now. But Diana was completely unraveling. She recorded me without my permission. That's illegal. Georgia is a one-party consent state, Mr. Fletcher said calmly. The recording is perfectly legal and admissible. Diana's lawyer grabbed her arm desperately, trying to pull her back into her seat. But it was far too late. The judge's expression had shifted from neutral to thoroughly disgusted. Do you have additional evidence? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Fletcher played the threatening voicemail Diana left for Martin Whitman. Her vicious, threatening voice echoed through the silent courtroom. By the time it finished, Diana was visibly shaking. The judge removed his glasses and stared directly at her with contempt. Mrs. Diana, I find your documented actions absolutely unconscionable. This court finds clear and convincing evidence of undue influence, deliberate coercion, and willful obstruction of legal processes, the judge declared firmly. The will presented by Mrs. Diana is hereby declared invalid. Diana's lawyer tried desperately to object, but the judge silenced him with a single look. The prior will, clearly naming Emily as primary beneficiary, is hereby reinstated in full. Mrs. Diana will receive only the statutory minimum spousal allowance, as required by law. Nothing more. The courtroom erupted with shocked murmurs. Diana stood frozen, her face white as paper. Furthermore, the judge continued, I am referring this entire matter to the district attorney for potential criminal investigation into elder abuse and financial fraud. Diana let out a strangled, horrible cry. Her lawyer began frantically gathering papers, but Diana just stood there, trembling. This court is adjourned, the judge said, banging his gavel with finality. As people filed out, I sat completely still, letting the reality sink in slowly. I'd won. Dad's real wishes had finally been honored. Mr. Fletcher squeezed my shoulder gently. You did it, Emily. Your father would be incredibly proud of you. Tears streamed down my face, not from sadness anymore, but from pure relief. Finally, the truth had won. Outside the courthouse, Diana cornered me desperately. Her perfect mask was completely shattered. Her eyes looked wild, panicked, terrified. Emily, please, she begged. Please don't let them investigate me. I'll give you anything you want. Just stop this. I looked at her, this woman who'd tried to erase me, who'd manipulated my dying father, who'd destroyed evidence and threatened lawyers. You did this entirely to yourself, I said quietly but firmly. I have nowhere to go now, she whispered desperately. No one. Nothing left. You had everything, I replied. You just wanted more than you deserved. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Goodbye, Diana. I walked away, leaving her standing alone in the courthouse hallway. For the first time since Dad died, I felt genuinely free. A week later, Mr. Fletcher called me back to his office. There's one more thing your father wanted you to have, he said gently. He handed me a small flash drive. He recorded this about a month before he died. He asked me to keep it completely safe and give it to you only after everything was properly settled. My hands shook as I took it. What is it? A personal message. Just for you. I went home and plugged the drive into my laptop with trembling fingers. Dad's face appeared on the screen, thin and tired but smiling warmly. Hi, sweetheart, he said, and my heart broke all over again. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And it means you fought for the truth, just like I always knew you would. Tears poured down my face uncontrollably. I'm so sorry for everything Diana put you through. I tried desperately to protect you, but I was weak, sick, confused. He paused, his eyes glistening with emotion. But I never stopped loving you. Never stopped believing in who you are. I know you're probably scared right now. Angry. Hurt. But I also know you're strong, Emily. So much stronger than you realize. He leaned closer to the camera, his expression full of love. Fight for what's right. Always stand up for the truth. And know that I'm proud of you. So incredibly proud. His smile widened slightly. I love you, kiddo. Always and forever. The video ended, leaving only a black screen. I sat in complete silence, crying until I had absolutely no tears left. Dad had known everything. He'd known Diana would try to hurt me. And he'd prepared for it, leaving me breadcrumbs to follow, tools to fight back with, and finally, this message to remind me exactly why I fought. Not for money. For truth. For dignity. For love. I closed my laptop and looked around my small apartment, the one I'd thought I might lose. Now it felt like a genuine sanctuary. Diana's criminal investigation was ongoing. I didn't know what would ultimately happen to her, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. She'd made her choices. I had made mine. I thought about Dad's dreams for me, the ones he'd mentioned in his letters. He wanted me to be happy, successful, and true to myself. I decided to honor that completely. I enrolled in classes to finish my degree. I started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping other people fight for their rights when they felt powerless. And every single day, I remembered Dad's final words. I'm proud of you. A few months later, I stood at Dad's grave, holding fresh flowers. We did it, Dad, I whispered. The truth won. The wind rustled gently through the trees, and for just one perfect moment, I felt him there with me. I smiled, placed the flowers carefully on the ground, and walked away. Not as the girl who'd been erased from a will, but as the woman who'd fought back with truth and courage, and won.